people in LA were not skeptical of things like joy and beauty the way that they were in New York. If it was beautiful, if it was uplifting, it was like corny and unsophisticated, right? It was the legacy of all the artists that came from Europe during and after World War II. And like, I get it, but you were not allowed to be considered a serious artist if you wanted anything remotely joyful to go on in your art. That changed with pop art, which I think was like the pent up, like, fuck you, I want to be happy sometimes in my painting studio kind of energy. But in LA, it was always, they held on to that. And I think that therefore, I, as a writer about the art being made here, was allowed to also feel joy and to also celebrate beauty, which comes naturally to me. That's why I ended up staying. It just felt like, yeah, me too. This is how I also feel.
This is Five Places, Los Angeles, a living documentary of the city produced by the LA Forum for Architecture and Urban Design. I'm Emmanuelle Bourlier, creator, producer, and usually your host, but today I'm thrilled to share our third +1 interview. In each episode, I've been asking our interviewees to name someone whom they in turn would choose to ask about the 5 places that define Los Angeles for them. Artist Laurie Lipton, whom I interviewed in episode 8, chose art critic Shana Nys Dambrot as her +1, and in a few moments, you'll hear their fascinating conversation. Shana Nys Dambrot is an art critic, curator, and author based in downtown LA. She is the arts editor for the LA Weekly and a contributor to Flaunt, Artillery, and other culture publications. She studied art history at Vassar College, curates and juries exhibitions, writes prolifically for exhibition catalogs and monographic publications, and speaks at galleries, schools, and cultural institutions nationally. She is the author of the surrealist novel Zen Psychosis. She is the recipient of the 2022 Mozaik Future Art Writers Prize, the 2022 Rabkin Prize for Art Criticism, and the LA Press Club National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Critic of the Year Award for 2022. Shana called in from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where she was on a writing retreat, so you may notice that the audio and video are just slightly choppier than usual. If you watch on YouTube, you'll catch a sneak peek of Laurie Lipton's current project, a nearly 7-foot by 20-foot triptych, aptly titled Smoke. Watch to the end to see some of Osceola Refatov's gorgeous photography for Zen Psychosis, and to learn Shana's +1 choice, which I won't spoil here, but I will say that the interview has already been recorded, and it's so good. It contains so much love for and deep knowledge of Los Angeles. But first, here's a brilliant conversation between the artist and the art critic, Laurie interviewing Shana.
I knew you were going to have a gorgeous background. That's why I did my background, my newest.
I love it back there. What you managed to do is what we talked about, which is somehow make it both darker and lighter at the same time.
Oh, no, but these are just the doors. When you open it, the whole thing becomes smoke. And just anyway, I'm driving myself crazy. So I thought it'd be a good contrast to your background, which I'm so jealous of. It isn't funny. Well, anyway, so when I was asked to choose my person to do this with, we were just about to do the book launch at Hauser Wirth. And I thought, no one better than Shana, because she's such a contrast to my life in LA. It isn't funny because you actually go out.
I have to.
That's your work.
But I do.
It couldn't be. So maybe I'm taking notes just in case you mention a place I should be, you know. But are you from LA? I'm not sure. Are you?
I am not. I'm from New York, which I think, but I moved to LA to pre-answer question 1 in 1995.
So that's like you are from LA.
And it's more than half my life. But New York is like the kind of place, if you're from there, you're always from there no matter what. So people can still, like, I'll talk to them for 30 seconds and they'll say something like, are you from New York?
Really?
I'm like, what did I do? Like, what did I do?
See, they ask me that, but I don't hear it from you at all. I don't.
I don't either, but people can sense it. And then I go home and they're like, how long have you lived in California?
So you've been there since 95, you said? And did
Yes.
you come with your family or did you come on your own? What was the purpose?
I came sort of with friends from college. So I had gone to school on the East Coast at art history at Vassar, and all my friends were fancy art people, but some of them were also very adventurous. My best friend was one of those, and she was like, I read about this place. She was from Germany. I read about this place and got in the car, like from graduation, and moved to Venice. And that was in, May of 93. And about February of 95, I came to visit her. And I was like, and I'd been working at the Guggenheim. I had, interned for Leo Castelli. I did it. And I was not happy at the Guggenheim. And snow that February was like, storm watch, whatever, up to here. And I wound up in Venice Beach, where I had never been, in February. And I was like, yeah. So I'm not going back. And I basically did it. Like, I paid my roommates to pack my stuff and mail it to me.
Wow.
Because that's what you can do when you're 23, 24.
Yeah, no kidding. But you had good connections in New York. How did you give those up?
Well, there were people that were ready to move in to the apartment who were willing to pay more than I'd been paying. So talking those roommates into that wasn't hard. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the art world jobs, calling from Vassar and being like, I'm an art history major and I want to intern at your gallery. It's not impossible. Yeah. It's not like it is now, where a lot of those positions are like the children of super rich collectors. Back then, it was still quasi elitist, but it was more like,
the
from a good school, even if I had never heard of your family or something.
Vassar is very impressive.
In the art world, certainly. And, deservedly so. It's an amazing education. So, and there are connections, and we're all over the place. For a small school, we're like secretly everywhere, everywhere you look.
I'm looking under my bed now.
There's probably one over there. I would at least one. But I was, at least I've got my act together enough to take advantage of that opportunity. And so then when moving to LA and looking for a job in the art world, I had those names on my resume. And then that in turn was impressive in LA in the 90s. And so it wasn't that difficult to, you know what I mean? Like, it all just built on itself. And then I was going to go home in a couple of years.
Yeah. And you're really established. I mean, when I first moved, you're really established there. You're really in the LA art scene. You're really embedded.
Well, again, I got really lucky because like my roommates were artists. And so a lot of that came like pre-baked into like the people that I met. The job I got was at Bergamot, like within 2 months of when it first opened. And it was like the biggest thing that, like the opening nights, they'd all coordinate and there'd like literally be like a traffic jam going off the Cloverfield exit down the 10. Like, it was crazy. And I was working there, so I met everyone. But again, that was just like luck. Like, that's where I ended up. And
when you say you were working there, what were you working in a gallery? You weren't just writing. It was
I was working in a gallery.
And that's how you met everyone.
And that's how I met everyone. And then everyone included people with like art magazines and stuff. And so I knew everybody. And then this online culture pub, it was very pioneering, being entirely online, called Flavor Pill, started in New York. And there was a London and a San Francisco, Chicago. And I was the second managing editor of LA. And one thing they liked about me was that I could put all this art in there. Because again, mid-90s, it wasn't like it is now. Now you would never think of doing anything without an art section. But then it wasn't like that necessarily. And they really saw the potential of that. And so it turned out to be like the one thing I knew was like, happened to be, I didn't know anything about the internet. I still a little, but I knew about art. And so I got that job, and then I met everybody else, and then it just became that. And the LA Weekly is very similar, except with, more chance for like longer stories and stuff. But yeah, I've joked that I've been making an arts calendar in Los Angeles since the year 2002, and it'll probably be the last thing I do before I die is publish like an arts calendar like 40 years from now. Like, honestly, I can't stop. Every job I have wants that, but that's how it all started, and everything just branched off from that core where I had to learn. So I just have been so it's been a lot of serendipity.
Yeah. Well, it's, if you're good at something, serendipity comes to you.
And I love art. I love to look at it, think about it, argue about it, stay up late writing about it. That's what I did in college. That's all I ever want to do.
Any specific isms that really get you, or are you just open to everything?
Kind of both. I mean, maybe it's me getting older, maybe it's the times in which the crazy world and mixed up world in which we're living in. But I've been increasingly attracted to like beauty and sincerity and putting an effort into your craft, stuff like that. Call me crazy. So I've been on that. I've been on a like pure soul kick for a while, and I don't see that changing. So I'm open to anything, but I'm closed to the deliberately stupid.
What do you think about AI, by the way?
I think good for art, bad for artists, probably, in a sense. I know that's kind of blasé, and I don't mean it that way, but I think remove surveying the visual culture. It's obviously interesting, right? The questions about authorship, the physical aesthetic and how it's built, and if it learns from art history or if it learns from comic books, and just all of it is like, which comic books maybe learned from art history in the first place, and like, oh my, like the intellectual, just the investigatory energy of it, and the unpredictably insane results, and the people who are clearly very good at it, that are out there working and really thinking, and the philosophy idiom that it's kind of spawning, what it's doing to language, just in terms of how you have to describe, and I'm so excited about all of that. But that doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
And I'm very aware of the genuine threats to ownership, authorship, gainful employment, and such that it might represent to so many artists who work in that way for a living. I don't think it's going to like dry up the market for oil painting, but I think there's a whole professional echelon of people with intersections in animation and design and graphics and, every visual thing you see that someone made. I think a lot of that might be in danger because of corporate greed and the soulless nature of late stage capitalism. And I'm worried. And I think that's what the writers are on strike about. They're worried too.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's a very similar set of issues to what's going on over there, and solidarity to that. So yeah, both.
Yeah, God, we can't even conceive of what's going to happen really, because it can get beyond us and, away from us,
It's going
basically.
to be amazing.
Yeah.
Witness.
But if it starts thinking for itself and then it has control over everything. I love AI. I love AI. Just in case they're listening. Just in case they're listening. Friend. Someone did an AI saying, you do Laurie Lipton. And it was just so bad. I mean, the detail was crapola, basically. So I don't personally feel threatened. The AI is, first of all, too intelligent to do the crap I do. I mean, it's just too much effort. But,
I love you so much, Laurie Lipton.
Oh, did I pronounce your name correctly, by the way? Shana Nys Dambrot?
Probably Dambrot is probably what they used to say in like the old country. I just say Dambrot now.
Oh, Dambrot, like an American.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
Queens, New York.
All right. Okay, fine. So
Free Ellis Island, I'm sure it was much more interesting, but I can't do that.
So Ms. Dambrot.
Yes, lady.
The first place in LA that you would say is the quintessential LA for you?
Okay. So I made a list and I, of course, I tried to follow the rules as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So I have 5 and an honorable mention, but you will see why. Okay. It's okay. I promise. Don't worry. Right. I know the name of this podcast is 5 Places. I understand.
Right.
But it's good. I think it's okay.
All right.
All right. So in no particular order, other than just I dreamed about it and this is how it happened. My first place that defines LA for me is the Chateau Marmont. And I do sort of feel like what I mean is the Chateau Marmont in the 80s and 90s rather than the Chateau Marmont right now.
Right.
No offense to, William Douglas Lee, the amazing architect, famous that built the El Royale in Hancock Park, like love the Beaux-Arts, 1928 or 9 or something. Like, it's still beautiful. But when I choose it, I think I more like mean, the lore of it.
The history, what was going on there. So like what was? I'm not too familiar with it.
I mean, there's a couple of like sad things, like, John Belushi died there. I believe the photographer Helmut Newton also died there, driving his car out onto Sunset Boulevard. But so there's been some like celebrity tragedies, but basically like it was sort of like the Hollywood version of the Algonquin Hotel in New York. Right? Like it was celebrities, but it was like the crazy kind of excellent
cool celebrities.
Yeah. And it was a little bit bohemian, even though it was super fancy and bougie at the same time. And it was just so beautiful and so old and so like not shiny new 80s nonsense. And it just always had this kind of haunted glamour and the history of it, which I think it still exudes, even though it's not exactly what it was. And they would do events with, artists and writers, and that lawn that's the restaurant now used to be a croquet field, and people would be like Helena Christensen would be out there playing croquet. It was just beautiful. I spent a lot of time there when I was first moved here, and they did an art fair there, like an old fashioned hotel art fair. I don't know what is time, 1998. Let's say. And a lot of people came out from New York, and it was like amazing. And, I just really love it. So can't have LA without the Chateau Marmont, my opinion.
Okay. I got to go. I have never been, by the way.
It's just, if you like that aesthetic, which I think you do, there's nothing better.
Okay, I will.
So that's my 1. 2 is the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine.
What's that?
Oh God, Laurie. So believe me, the internet will know a lot more about the details of the history than I do. But basically, it's this crazy place in like, I want to say Malibu, but it's not exactly that. It's like this end of the San Ynez Mountains, but like at the coast. Anyway, it's a huge lake and Buddhist. Well, it's not Buddhist. The aesthetic, you want to say Buddhism, but it's actually the point of it is that it's universal faith. Faiths of whatever it is fine faith. It's more of a meditation garden, and there's a long walk around a lake through this beautiful landscaping, and then this kind of like vaguely like Eastern aesthetic temple space, and there's a monument to Gandhi and world peace, and there's little moments where you contemplate things and lily pads and stuff. And they do little talks and things, but there's no doctrine, right? You don't have to like sign up for anything. You can just go.
Is it
And
open? It's open to the public?
very much so.
Hmm.
And it's the person who I was reading up a little bit on it because of this. And there's a great story about it where it was like one billionaire bought it and something happened and he couldn't build there. So he sold it to another billionaire. And then that billionaire was going to build on it, but he had a dream and woke up and was like, I must allow there to be a faith center, whatever. The internet's amazing. And then that guy called Paramahansa Yogananda and said, you're in charge of this faith center. And so around 1950, it was kind of developed, and that was the deal. But it's for everyone, and it's in some ways the most California thing you can possibly imagine.
You see, I'm so glad I picked you because it's already 2 places I need to get to. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, there's another satellite of it in Silver Lake that, those beautiful onion domes that are just in Silver Lake. That's a smaller, satellite of the same thing.
Oh, wow. Who knew?
I know. You can get out, girl. But, you're drawing all the time.
I know.
So you got to stop drawing for just like half a day and go to one place.
Well, I keep saying to people, I'm self-employed, but I work for a bitch.
Oh my God, I love you so much. Okay, so my third place is probably pretty obvious, and a lot of people probably pick it, but I don't care, which is the Getty, both the Getty Center, but almost more importantly, the Getty Villa. That, because the Getty Center is beautiful, and Richard Meyer did his thing, right? Top form, every choice, no notes, on board. But the Getty Center doesn't need my help to let you know that you should go there. Nor really does the Villa, but I think the Getty Villa is a place that locals don't always think about going as much. You know what I mean? Like you think of, I want to go to a museum. It's kind of for a little further down the list. Maybe there's theater there or something, or someone's from out of town and you want to take them there. But I don't think that we just in the art world use the Getty Villa exhibition and collection as much as we could. And for better or worse, there's a lot going on right now there in the repatriation discourse. So I think it's of interest, and the renovations that they did in not 95, 96 that made some parts modern but kept the whole Pompeii Villa thing intact are really beautifully done, and it's just a very welcoming. Every time I go, I think, oh yeah, this place.
Yeah, I haven't been there in a very long time. I went when my brother and sister-in-law were visiting.
Exactly.
Ages ago.
Exactly.
And I loved it when I was there, and you're up on the mountain and you just, and it's just so, and the gardens, and it's just beautiful.
And they do, Greek, like ancient Greek and Roman plays in the amphitheater. And it's like very authentic. And, I don't know, like, everyone's like, oh yeah, the Getty Villa. But I really think we underuse it in the contemporary, like,
it's so hard to get to. I mean, the traffic, and then, it's like a whole schlep and a half.
You have to kind of decide, but it's always worth it without exception. So I was trying to think of what screams Los Angeles at the top of its lungs. And I was like, the Getty Villa. It's every part of that you think LA is, all reclusive billionaire, cliffside view, Peter Bogdanovich's old house on the right when you're going up the driveway, all of it. It's all of it. And equity, our Actors Equity theater production. Definitely. Let's go. I love it.
Yeah. It was so mind-boggling to me after living in London for 26 years, and all the museums are such big, old, clumpy, dark places. And then to go to LA and you're going to the Getty Center.
That's your tourism pitch, is it, for London?
Oh, the artwork is good. The artwork is good.
Oh my God, hilarious. Okay, we're going back downtown because similarly, I think that the Central Library, the downtown branch, the main on Fifth and Grand, sort of, is stunning as the structure. Bertram Goodhue, and then a whole. But okay, I read about this. I knew this. The original architect died in the middle of it, and his partner Carlton Winslow finished it. But there's all this art in there that was like commissioned at the time. You know, the sculptures outside and inside by someone named Laurie that are just those beautiful Beaux-Art narrative, not even bas relief, like almost halfway statuary. That person also built the Zodiac chandelier that's in the rotunda. There's all these murals from the 30s in there. One of them is the history of the California mission. So obviously it's a little like, oh, yay. You know, we now know that was not the paradise we were told it was. But the mural is an exceptional contemporaneous document to that inception of Los Angeles's idea about itself, right? So we can obviously critique it as contemporary content, but these things are beautiful and beautifully preserved and right there. And then the new wing has a bunch of more contemporary sculpture. There's a Renee Petropoulos Zodiac piece in there that kind of, and then there's the McGuire Gardens outside, which Lawrence Halpern did. And of course, Lawrence Halpern has very deep roots in California landscape architecture, Marin County. His wife was Anna Halpern with the conceptual dance legend. So there's a lot of that kind of beautiful history in the bones of the building, as well as obviously, you know, all the reasons you might go to a library. But they do art and architecture tours at the library, and it's worth doing. Like, there's so much more in there than you might even realize, and it's all like immaculate. So the downtown Central Library.
I've never been in there either.
Got a lot to do, Laurie.
Oh my God. I'm so disappointed in myself.
Yeah, there's a Laddie Dill and Museo Mizuno designed fountain out in the gardens. Like, you got to get down there, girl. It's nice. And they have the Mark Taper Forum there, where all the allowed, the book talks and things like that happen. And so that's at night, but you can still kind of be in there if you don't want to go on the whole tour. You can still kind of, anyway, check it out. All right, and the fifth and final physical location I think you should go is the downtown LA flower market. The flower market, the whole district of it. There's nothing else like it. It's just heaven on earth. End of story. Like, what do you want? 500 hyacinths? There you go. Like, just think of it, dream of it. They have it. Walking around in there is like being in a dream, even with all the commerce happening. And beyond the main one, there's all these like plant stores, and some of them go like all the way through the block. You don't even realize how big they are. Just do it. It's so marvelous to be down there.
Well, I've never been there either.
Let's get going.
God, I gotta get people to drive me.
We'll give Laurie a ride. I know. And so I know we're almost done, but my honorable mention is I was thinking about the American Hotel in the Downtown Arts District. And it is not what it was. Don't like, the murals on the outside are still there, but honestly, like, don't bother. But what it was like a full 100 years of like just every single layer of Los Angeles history just piled. It was built in 1905. It was the first, and for a long time, only hotel that would rent rooms to Black people. Perhaps not coincidentally, the downstairs lobby bar became known as like nationally known as an amazing jazz club scene. And then that became a thing. And then later generations kind of took it over. And there was a Japanese family that opened a store on the corner. That was the first one in the neighborhood. But then that family was a victim of the internment policy. So another family from the neighborhood bought it, and he had it for like 40 years. And during that time, the bar turned into Al's Bar, which is like a globally famous punk rock bar. That, I mean, I'm telling you. And while all this is and more is going on, the upstairs are all these like single room occupancy, and they're all like artists and writers and weirdos and characters, and they're all in there making their crazy art and putting it outside. And I mean, unbelievable. And so two of those people, Stephen C. Meyer, Semayer, and Pamela Wilson, took it upon themselves to make a documentary, and they've been working on it for a long time. And they interviewed, I don't even know, 50 of the artists that were living there before it changed into the bougie boutique hotel it is now. But also went like Ken Burns all the way back to 1905 and wove it all together. And the movie is called Tales from the American, and it's on demand available, and it's beautiful. And if you're listening to this podcast, you love how the history of a city is told through the idea of the places, obviously.
Right.
And I just thought, I can't not say the American, but if I'm really honest, at this moment, it kind of only exists in this film.
Right.
So it was an honorable mention.
Oh no, that's very good. I think it's allowable. Totally. I will allow it.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome, darling. Now, there's another question about how have these places evolved significantly over the few years that the past years since you've been here? Or
I think I somewhat talked about that
right.
with each one. Like, the it's not the chateau's fault. The world changed, right? And the American Hotel, we all were pretty bummed when it became obvious that it was going to be, an influencer type little, adventure hotel. And what was Al's Bar is now like a pretty expensive clothing store. Like we were all, we were like, oh God. So that kind of stuff, those voices, who can hold back time. But one thing I like about the other places is that they kind of don't change. Like the library has been there since 1929, right? And they've added, but they haven't taken away. And the flower market has been there, God only knows how long. When this was just like Pueblo de Los Angeles, there were going to be flower farmers. And I mean, like that is, and it's so definitionally local, right? So I think a lot of the places that I enjoyed are places that have been here and have kind of held the line. Like the villa got renovated, but it's, again, they didn't take anything away. They only added. The Getty hasn't been there that long, but it was an instant landmark.
Yeah.
So I feel that way about it.
And has LA changed you and your writing?
I think yes-ish. This is the curveball question, right? Yeah. Sneaky, cheeky little, not even telling me the curveball was coming up. And now I get it. That was the curveball. Okay. I would say this. When I first moved here, people ask me all the time, LA, New York, LA, New York. And one of the shorthand answers that I came up with was that people in LA were not skeptical of things like joy and beauty the way that they were in New York. If it was beautiful, if it was uplifting, it was like corny and unsophisticated, right? It was the legacy of all the artists that came from Europe during and after World War II. And like, I get it. but you were not allowed to be considered a serious artist if you wanted anything remotely joyful to go on in your art. That changed with pop art, which I think was like the pent up, fuck you, I want to be happy sometimes in my painting studio kind of energy. But in LA, it was always this. They held on to that. And I think that therefore, I, as a writer about the art being made here, was allowed to also feel joy and to also celebrate beauty along with that, which comes naturally to me. And so I don't know if my writing would have been different, but I don't think I would have done as well in New York, because I would have constantly been like defending that. Whereas in Los Angeles, that's part of how people experience art. And I think they recognize the openness and the appreciation of wild, random shit that I have. And I think that's just such a good fit that I think that's why I ended up staying. It just felt like, yeah, okay, like me too. Like, this is how I also feel. I'd look at the work, I'd look at the art and think, yeah, I see it. Whereas a lot of, the 80s in New York and stuff is like, no, thank you. A lot of it, right? It was so dark and so
I wasn't there. I was in Europe.
Everybody was so mad about everything.
I think we should get mad about everything again, but that's just me. But
I mean, look, nobody write me letters about, I obviously understand, I studied art history. I obviously understand the value of that, but I'm strictly speaking to my personal day-to-day quality of life. What do I want to be having a conversation with? And for me, it was not that.
And also, I think the difference between LA and New York is like a hummingbird and a pigeon, quite frankly. I mean, LA, a hummingbird is so fucking out of this world, beautiful, nuts, crazy. And a New York pigeon, need I say more?
But a New York pigeon is like the king of all they survey.
Yeah, and it's strutting around and it's crapping wherever it
right at you. It's not scared of nothing. It's like, oh, nice statue. Shame if anything were to happen to it. I really, okay, I'll go with you on that. Yeah. But so I just, in retrospect, I think it just fit. I was a fit for that, and that's what happened.
All right, no,
I honor Los Angeles in that way. Like, I have always loved that about the scene here. And
also you can understand why Color and Light was born here, the whole movement of that, because that's what LA is,
Yeah. And also those artists who have chosen to look at the abject and go to the darker shadow self, of which there were plenty, like Paul McCarthy, Mike Kelly, oh yeah, you, Kari Upson, plenty, right? But there's an extra thing about taking that on in Los Angeles, right? And the Hammer did that Sunshine and Noir show, and it's like, yeah, it's darkness, but it's darkness in paradise is different. It hits different. We had that as the sort of basso profundo while all this was going on, and I love it.
I love the title Darkness in Paradise. I think that's going to be the title of my next show.
Let that be mon cadeau à toi, mon amour.
I'm writing Darkness in Paradise. Now, if you could pick somebody to bring on to the 5 places in LA, who would it be?
So I have a lot of options.
Yeah.
But the one that really, as soon as I thought about him, just exploded my heart is a gentleman named Mike Sonksen, Sonksen, aka Mike the Poet. And he's about my age, and he is a beloved and acclaimed poet and sort of city, but really county historian of Los Angeles. He does walking tours in every part of Los Angeles, from El Sereno downtown. He does poetry everywhere that you can think of. He's a regular contributor to KCET programming and performed spoken word, like I said, and publishes books, and he's involved, and he's a mentor. It's very important to him. But one of the things that he does especially well is the historical walking tour. And so he's also this Mike Davis level encyclopedia of LA history, but through the lens of landmarks and locations and neighborhoods. So I thought he would be beyond perfect.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Program. He's marvelous, and he loves opportunities to bring new people into the conversation, and he will definitely do it. So
how lovely. That's excellent. Is there anything else you want to say, or anything to add? Or
I would say maybe apropos of where I am, I'm on a writer's residency in Puerto Vallarta. And I would say that there's a lot of reasons, but I would say like if you really have a desire to take Los Angeles seriously, you should spend time in different cities in Mexico as well. Like make the time and go to Mexico City, go to Guadalajara, go to Oaxaca, go to Merida, go to Puerto Vallarta, whatever. Even the touristy places have old towns. Like you can figure it out, and you can avoid the full tourist circuit very easily. And I would say it will only contribute to your understanding of Los Angeles to see the non-monolithic expanse of so many different kinds of beautiful things that Mexico is. And then when you get home, you'll understand that Mexican is not a monolith any more than American is. And you start to have, it just deepens your perception. And I say that as somebody who had never been to Mexico before I moved to LA, and then suddenly it became very easy, and I started going, and it blew my mind wide open. And I'm not Joan Didion, but like I get it. And I think that's something that is important to do because of the history of the region.
I was taken through Mexico before I came to LA because of the Day of the Dead. I was doing a show about it. And a friend of mine, a Spanish friend who knew Mexico very, very well, so we weren't in the touristy traps, took me through Mexico to go through, the Day of the Dead. And it was just amazing. And it's so embedded in LA too, the culture, a lot of the architecture, the landscape. That's very true.
It's so easy to learn where that comes from.
Yeah.
If you want to engage with Los Angeles on a deeper level, it's right there. And aside from the obvious merits of it being amazing, like it has a lot to teach LA about itself. So I would say that would be like my final thought, just to say hello from here. Hola. Buenos dias. Soy Mexico.
Well, thank you, my darling. Thank you. Thank you for participating. And it was lovely speaking to you and seeing where you are, so I could be totally jealous.
It's hot, but so hard to stay tense that you just have no choice but to be inspired, right? Like you can try to keep it going, but the beauty of this place really, and the heat, works against that. And you find yourself sort of almost relaxing against your will. And that's when inspiration has a chance. So it's a lovely place to have a residency. And I'm going to work on my top secret next book project idea. Don't jinx it. But that's what I'm here to do. So hopefully I'll have something to bring home with me.
So when you get home, we have to get together and you have to show me one of these places. I don't mind.
Any one of them would be great. Any one of them, but I don't drive either. We'll have to probably start with the flower market.
Yeah.
And work our way up to Malibu. When the episode comes out, we'll tweet like, we need a ride to the Getty Villa. Thank you so much for thinking of me. This was such a blast to think about, a real treat to have a chance to check back in with LA and my time there. And I really love it. I love the whole podcast, the LA Forum, everything they do. I think it's a fantastic organization. So I'm really happy to be part of it. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Totally my pleasure. All right, my sweetheart. Mwah. Hasta luego.
To learn more about Shana's work and the people and places mentioned in this conversation, please check out the show notes, which we like to make as thorough as possible. To learn more about Laurie Lipton, please check out episode 8. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by a small volunteer team, and you can make a significant difference by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing with even just one friend. Though we'd love it if you share it with as many people as possible. 5 Places is produced by Annalie Garakani, Quinn Wynn, and me, Emmanuelle Bourlier, for the LA Forum for Architecture and Urban Design. We recorded on Chumash and Tonga land. Thank you for listening.